Hello, good evening, and welcome back. Corporations are people too, as we see here, because YouTube has reversed its decision to ban the channel TalkRadio off of YouTube. And TalkRadio is essentially the rival for LBC in the UK for the right-wing perspective instead of the left-wing perspective. And recently, of course, as of yesterday, YouTube decided to just terminate the channel without any prior warning, and there doesn't seem to be any reasoning as to why it went down. And of course, as you can see just from this screenshot, 250,000 subscribers, we'd all like to be there, as well as several hour-long segments, because it is a radio show, which they're podcasting, they've got cameras in the studio for that. But that is what you're expected to see there. In which case, if you wish to go over things in the minutiae, then I'm sure you will find things that you can pick apart. But it gets worse, because of course, there are call-in shows, and they interview people, which means there will be people speaking on their platform, saying views that they don't agree with. And, hey, they are a platform, not a publisher when it comes to those interviews. In which case, they shouldn't be held responsible for the views expressed by people who they're not publishing. Isn't that right, YouTube? Isn't that right? And yet, YouTube's response was, of course, Nah, we're not going to allow that actually. We're just going to stop you. And this is my best theory because there is no official statement from YouTube as of yet as to why it happened. But what they're saying, because of the backlash, because people are saying, well, what the hell are you doing taking out such a large station in the UK? We don't appreciate this. There seems to be censorship gone too far. So, yeah, you did it with Alex Jones a while back, where you all spoke with one another, by which I mean Facebook and YouTube and Twitter, Instagram, which is more Google, but all of those companies got together and said, yeah, we're going to get rid of this guy at the same time, although Twitter seemed to act a day or two later. But that seemed to be their cabal working there. And people kind of accepted it, going, yeah, I guess he was on borrowed time. But then when it comes to just a conservative news show, almost akin to Steven Crowder, but just not as comical, and with a lot more content, then of course people are up in arms saying, well, what on earth are you playing at? And this is why I say corporations are people too. Because YouTube has heard this, by which I mean Susan has heard this, and her team have heard this. And they've decided, oh, Christ, yeah, we're not as big and powerful as we thought we were. Maybe we should just placate people in order to not let them know about our nefarious motives of which we're intending to push in order to foster support for the Democratic Party, or at the very least, not allow people to know anything bad about them or anything good about the opposition. As they intend to do, as Joe Biden wants them to do. Joe Biden wants to crack down on fake news. And that's definitely different. But that's what we can expect from him. So I guess we'll know tomorrow, being January the 6th, how it goes in Washington, D.C. But they say the decision to ban TalkRadio had pulled digital rights campaigners, with one group, Big Brother Watch, claiming it was evidence that big tech censorship is spiraling out of control, as we've been saying for a while. And I'm glad that they overstepped the mark and are trying to backpedal, because at least then people are aware and going, hang on a minute, they've been censored, but they were okay. Does that mean these other people who were censored aren't as bad? And, of course, for the majority of you as well, I'm sure you're feeling similarly to myself, in that if you hear somebody called racist or sexist or xenophobic or any of these bad buzzwords, you no longer think, oh, they're probably a bad person. You instead think, oh, they've probably got something interesting to say and worth hearing. Let me go find out about them. And in fact, I was looking to watch a film earlier on in the week, in the evening, and I found a review really slating a particular movie. And they said it's awful, and it's so like, what to expect in this Trumpian age, and, toxic masculinity and all that, and sexist. And I'm thinking, well, I'm persuaded I will now watch this movie, and I did enjoy it. So That's what these negative reviews now do, in effect. So if somebody is facing flack and they're being called bad words, I just think they're probably somebody interesting, worth listening to. And so I think the same is going to happen here, because people are going to have second thoughts about, hang on, why was this person cancelled? Or why was TalkRadio terminated? Maybe there's more to it. Maybe other people terminated or cancelled are worth listening to. And more people are going to wake up to the fact that these buzzwords, which have been relied upon as a crutch for so long by the left, are just calling somebody, a bad word, that saying essentially that they're evil, would do the job for them. But they've overplayed their hand, and at this point, it doesn't have the same effect, but instead it just makes people more interested in what they have to say. So, YouTube's response, its official response, was TalkRadio's YouTube channel was briefly suspended, but upon further review, has now been reinstated. We quickly remove flagged content that violate our community guidelines, including COVID-19 content that explicitly contradict expert consensus from local health authorities or the Chinese Health Organization. We make exceptions for material posted with an educational, documentary, scientific, or artistic purpose, as was deemed in this case. Bullshit. Absolute bullshit. No. What you do is you make your guidelines in order to enforce your politics. And then when you get too much of a backlash because it shows your bias too openly, too obviously, and you lose support, you then try and pick apart your own guidelines as you have picked apart your opposition in order to be able to reinstate them and pretend you haven't lost face. But you have. You most certainly have. And yes, the flagged content, of course, you've got mass flagging campaigns which have been going on for years. But here, when they say that it would contradict their so-called expert consensus, and bear in mind that the consensus doesn't make science. Science is separating fact from fiction. It doesn't matter who agrees with it or what the consensus is. For example, with the Earth being flat or bees not being able to fly, these kinds of things. But that is what they're going for. And then, of course, they don't want to name all their sources because it would make it too obvious to point it out, so they go with local health authorities. But then they say the Chinese Health Organization, or as they phrase it, the World Health Organization, in order to try and garner some credibility, because they think that the WHO is still a reliable source. However, the World Health Organization recommends that you don't have national lockdowns. Of course, previously recommended that you don't wear masks because China wanted to buy them back for themselves and all their PPE, and therefore just told the World Health Organization to tell people that they wouldn't work. And people like Fauci, of course, have said, we're changing the percentage of which herd immunity will happen because we didn't think it would be feasible if we told you the truth, and therefore we lied to you in order to get you on side. The same as we told you masks wouldn't work because we needed them for our professionals, and therefore thought you were expendable in order to ensure they got what they needed. And this kind of admittance afterwards of the lies being told really questions any future trustworthiness or validity of statements. And so with the World Health Organization here, you can say what they said a few months ago, and that's no good because it's not up to date, and therefore you'll be banned or flagged. Or if you've left an earlier video up, then you're fucked, even if it was aligned with the World Health Organization at that point. And hey, if they apply that across the board, then of course the World Health Organization's YouTube channel should have gone a while ago as well, because they contradict themselves. But we're not going to see it applied evenly. As I say, it's just a guise in order to push a political agenda to try and make it more palatable to people, and in order to have plausible deniability that what they're doing isn't so bad. But you might also say, okay, well, the World Health Organization has this particular point. For example, lockdowns don't work, so I'm going to say lockdowns don't work and I'm going to be against them. So, oh no, you can't be doing that because that's what the Labour Party wants. and therefore what Boris Johnson wants, because he's just doing what Keir Starmer says, who is just doing what the communists are telling him to do. I don't remember how many votes the communists got last time, but no, they didn't win a majority. And then similarly in the US, of course, with the regressive wing of the Democratic Party, which is then telling YouTube what to do. So you might agree with the World Health Organization, but that would go against their politics, because the World Health Organization does not always agree with them. In which case, they're going to switch back to their local health authorities and basically just decide, here's what we want to enforce, who can we get that people will respect enough in order to not question us too much about our removals and flagging of people. That's it. That is literally it. And, just to go into more detail, prohibited content includes medically unsubstantiated claims relating to COVID-19. Who decides what is substantiated and what is not? What is the bar of evidence? Are you really going to review all the scientific studies and analysis, YouTube? No, you're not. So again, it comes back to politics. But okay. What did TalkRadio have to say about this? YouTube is making decisions about which opinions the public are allowed to hear, even when they are sourced to responsible and regulated news providers, regulated by Ofcom. This sets a dangerous precedent and is censorship of free speech and legitimate national debate, which is completely correct. But again, that is the idea. It is to control the flow of ideas, so you do not hear things that would be subversive to their ideals, and therefore you do not know your other options, and it is difficult for you to formulate a response, because, of course, they've had groups working for decades formulating their philosophies, which essentially just comes down to might is right, but they'll dress it up in fancy, flowery language, whereas you would have to be on your own, because if you started talking to people about this, censored. And it's divide and conquer. A very, very old tactic, but you know it because it works. And that's what they're doing here. So I guess I'm on borrowed time as well. But that's about it for me. So, as always, there's their analysis there that we're just going to skip over. So let me know what you guys think down below. Is there anything substantive that YouTube have that they're using as a morality or a philosophy which is reliable and is predictable and you will know where you stand? Or is it just you have to agree with their politics blindly in order to be safe? If so, when is Trump going to get on Parler? But as always, let me know what you guys think down below. Always intrigued to hear what you guys have to say. And until next time, have a good one.